I still love the craft. I still get a kick out of it. I still love a great story. We're chasing magic. It's more art than science, what we do. So really with writing, the best a writing teacher can offer is to give you examples of the best, let you sit with the best, and then practice and get lots of reps in.
Hey, this is Shea.
And this is Carrie.
Welcome to the Pocket Change Podcast,
where you'll learn better ways to spend, save, and invest and take control of your financial journey.
So, Carrie, the way we consume media has changed over the years. And, with AI, it's probably going to change even more. And now there's even more and more content being produced.
That's right. And it makes the art of telling a good story even more complicated and complex. So
That's right.
Today, we actually have an expert in storytelling and journalism, and I cannot wait to talk to him.
It's going to be a great conversation.
Aw, Kluck, let's get started. We're excited to welcome our guest today, Ted Kluck, journalism professor at Union University. Welcome to Pocket Change.
Great to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming a college professor?
Yeah, so I teach journalism at Union. I've been there for 9 years. Absolutely love it. Love being there. Love working with the students. I think when I was in college, 0% of people would have bet on me to be a future college teacher. I was an athlete. I went to college to play football. Had some injuries, broke the same leg twice. Had a bit of an existential crisis, kind of like, what's the point of me? Like, why am I here? What am I doing? And met a girl. So like all great stories. She was a senior. I was a sophomore. She was a kind of English theater type girl, loved to read, loved books. And I had always loved to write. But it was something that I kind of kept a secret because in the 90s, you weren't like an athlete and a writer. You were kind of one or the other persona-wise. So I always kept kind of that part of my reading and writing life secret. But she encouraged me to lean into it and go for it. And got an opportunity early in my career to write for ESPN, the magazine in the early 2000s,
Wow.
and that opened all kinds of doors and led to books. So in 2005, 2006-ish, I did a book on Mike Tyson called Facing Tyson, and then did some pro football stuff, some college football stuff, and did books for like 15 years until I came here.
Wow.
So it's been a wild ride. We were freelance for most of that time, so kind of way up and down financially, eat what you kill. But I loved it. It was a grand life. The Lord's been very kind, and it's neat to be able to tell stories for a living. I like that.
So you've had a career path that's gone a variety of different ways, and that's also led into some podcasting. So tell us how you got involved in some podcasts.
Yeah, so I've pretty much never been early to technologies, and I've never been a guy who gets super excited about tech. But there was this moment 10-ish years ago when I decided to get off all forms of social media just because I'm not good there. Like I knew myself, I knew my sin issues, my persona issues, and just thought, it'd be better for me to be off social, which really frustrated like my book publishers and my agent because they wanted me to be promoting all the time, right? And I didn't like that. I didn't like the kind of cloying, needy, self-promotional thing on social media. But right around this time, I was invited to be on a podcast called The Happy Rant. And I didn't know much about podcasting, but I knew that it was like radio, and I knew that I loved radio growing up. I loved listening to radio. And so I said yes, and that podcast got pretty big. We did it for about a decade and had 100,000 or so downloads a month and did live shows. And
That's what we're getting to with the Pocket Change podcast.
Yeah, we're right there.
You're going to bring us
close.
there.
You guys, it's going to be decadence and excess after this drops.
all right.
Your life is about to change. But no, it was fun. It was a lot of laughs and good times and good conversations, and it engaged those parts of journalism and storytelling that I really like, connecting with people and hearing their stories and making people laugh and just doing some of those natural things. So quit the Happy Rant 6 months or so ago, but I have two other ones. I have one called Kluck. It's just my last name. I always loved Johnny Carson. So I a guy offered to produce a show for me, and he just said, all you have to do is show up and answer questions, and we can call it Kluck. And I was like, yeah, I'm in on that. So we're doing that one, and I have one that's tied to a publishing company I started about 15 years ago called the Gut Check Podcast, and our company is Gut Check Press. So just a little small publisher. We do
all kinds of things.
Yeah. I stay pretty busy.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
So how do you think that journalism has changed over the past 10 to 15 years?
That's an interesting question, and it's one that I get asked a lot by parents and prospective students, and it has changed, I think, as our world has become kind of more bifurcated politically. Journalism's gone that way too in terms of how we cover news. And I think the biggest way, though, is that journalism is really tied to entertainment now. So as you're getting your news, you're also being entertained. You're having whatever philosophical proclivities you have. You're having those ears tickled by wherever you're getting your news. So there's no fewer jobs. They're just different jobs. And so for my students, when we talk about what jobs to get or where they want to work, part of the calculus is you're always doing somebody's bidding, and you have to make your peace with whoever's bidding you're doing, right? And that's different than what the world looked like in the year 2000 or 2001 when I started writing for ESPN, when they were just in the sports business and not the worldview business. So they may not want me now and I may not want them. But one thing that hasn't changed about journalism is that there's no fewer stories being disseminated. They're just coming out in different ways. So while it may have been print in the past, it's more online now. But point being, if you can tell a story well, especially a long story, the long interview, the voicey opinion piece, if you can do this at a really high level, there's no shortage of work for people who have those talents and those skill sets. So that's what we're trying to develop in them at Union.
And so storytelling is a big part of what you do and what you've done. And so why is that so important?
So when I was a little kid, I was shy. I was like painfully shy. Like my face would get red if I thought anybody was looking at me. And if I was in a room with people, I'd get real nervous and quiet. But I had this older cousin. He was 4 years older than me. He was super cool. I thought everything he did was amazing. And I had a grandpa who was really charismatic. And we get together for these family gatherings. These guys were from Chicago, and they were just interesting people and kind of colorful people. And they would tell stories, and they would tell these amazing, funny stories, and everybody be laughing, and they always had a point. And I just thought, man, if I could be like that one day, if I could say, if I could tell stories, kind of command a room. And so for a shy kid, that was kind of aspirational for me. But then somewhere along the line, I just fell in love with books. I'd always loved magazines, so I grew up reading magazines, and I loved the tactile nature of them. I loved that they lived in people's cars and backpacks, and on airplanes they went with people, and books go with people everywhere. And I love the idea, I think first with football, but now with writing, I think I had a strong desire to prove that I existed. You know what I mean? That I was on the planet. And I thought that football would deliver that, but it didn't. It turned out that their writing did. And I hope that people have a relationship with my books similar to some of the authors that I loved relating to their books, having them in my life, in my house,
That's wonderful. We at Leaders do think it's important to partner with our community. So we're proud to have a partnership with the Union journalism program.
Yeah.
How do you think that this partnership has contributed to enhance the student experience?
Well, I believe in competition. Right. And I love competition. I think that dates back to when I was an athlete, and it just becomes part and parcel with your life, and you always kind of know where you are. And so when I took this job, the journalism program was pretty small. It was kind of struggling. I think there were only a couple of kids in the major, but aspirational for me was to get it to a point where the top of our roster could compete with the top of anybody's roster in the nation. So Northwestern, Syracuse, some of these journalism schools that you hear about. And so the Lord's been kind. We've been able to grow the program. The classes are getting larger. We have way more kids in the major now. And I think the competition has elevated kind of all the ships, as the tide of competition has risen. But with the economy being the way it is, it's really important to me that we get to keep putting out an excellent hardcover, hard copy magazine. And printing costs go up. Union budgets haven't necessarily raised to meet the cost of printing. And I was actually in the pool this summer with one of your colleagues, and I sort of launched this idea.
That's where all deals are made.
That's where all the deals are made. That's where all the big executives do business. But no, I kind of launched the idea by him, and I was like, this would keep us really competitive. It would allow us to travel. It would allow us to go to this competition that we go to every year, the Southeast Journalism Conference, where we win awards that a school our size has no business winning. We've won Best Magazine of the South a few times. We've won
Great.
Best Feature Writer of the South twice. We got Best Arts and Entertainment Writer this year for the first time ever. The money that we get from leaders and the support that we get from leaders really allows us to stay competitive. And one of the things that I love about that is that I never want what we do as a Christian college to be junior varsity. And I think in Christian media for a while, there was a sense of, we'll just do what the world does, but we'll do it worse, And I always was at odds with that. I never liked that mentality. So this allows us to do things at a really high level, to recruit great kids, to retain. It kind of keeps me fresh because it encourages me that I have the resources to do what we need to do in the program. So I'm super grateful for it.
I'm happy to hear that.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah,
Thanks.
for sure.
Yeah, we believe in that too, to be, remain competitive. We've got a sign in our office that says, don't stop till you're proud. So we want to be sure we're putting out the best for our members each day and for look out for their needs. So we agree it's important. And why also is, journalism and the arts and programs like that, why are those still so important in education?
It's an interesting moment for higher ed, right? Because a pragmatic view of the world could say, why go to college anymore? You can just get out and begin working and earn a competitive wage. And there's actually a lot of logic in that. It's hard to hate that mentality. But on the other hand, I think learning to learn is really important. And for me, like, my life was kind of emblematic of it in the sense that I went to college for one thing. I went to college to be an athlete. The Lord had other plans. He disabused me of that idol pretty quickly. But then there were people in that environment that could ignite my passions in other areas. I had a professor, I'll never forget him, was so kind to his wife. He spoke so well of his wife and so highly of the Lord. And I don't remember much of what we talked about in the class, but I remember his encouragement. And he was one who came to visit me in the hospital after I was injured. And he leaned over the rail of the hospital bed and he goes, have you ever considered being a writer?
Oh, wow.
And I never had, but that opened up my whole world. And if I hadn't been there to have that happen and to then get things to read, to ignite the imagination and kind of push me in a different direction, I'm sure it would have been fine. But I think there's a lot of value in it. And there's a lot of value in the discipleship that happens in that model. I mean, that's at the heart of what we do at Union. If I can be in relationship with people and make much of the Lord, make much of my craft, then I'm doing something. And we can all feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, it's definitely impactful for sure, especially for the students, and
I hope
the
so.
byproduct for you too. So.
Yeah, I want it to be, and it's vibrant for me. It keeps me young. I still love the craft. I still get a kick out of it. I still love a great story. We're chasing magic. It's more art than science, what we do. So really with writing, the best a writing teacher can offer is to give you examples of the best, let you sit with the best, and then practice and get lots of reps in. And that's what we do at Union.
So since this is a financial education podcast talking about money, what's some of your financial advice that you can give us?
I don't know that I have great money advice, and I don't know that anybody would say Kluck is amazing with money, but I'll tell you a story. This was sophomore year of college.
This is a storytelling episode,
right.
so that's
it's a
perfect.
storytelling episode. So for better or worse, we're going to do it. I just met my wife, and I was crazy about her, right? We've been on one date. Again, she's a senior. She's about to graduate. I'm just a little sophomore trying to find my way in the world. I was at kind of this rich private school, but I was just a football player from the country. I was from the cornfield. I didn't have two pennies to rub together. But I was like, man, I really like this girl, and I really don't want her to leave. So our second date, I drove her to Indianapolis for dinner. I wanted to take her to a really nice dinner. And in the car on the way, I had this speech planned where I was going to tell her, I may never have money in my life. And if that's a problem with you, you can get out now, And I had this whole thing planned where I was going to just give her the gracious out. And God bless her, she was so offended. And she was like, who do you think I am? She's like, I'm in this for you. And she was like, I'm betting on you. I'm betting on your upside. And she bet on my upside. And
that's all we need is someone to just believe in us, right?
We do. And it was so beautiful and it worked out. So I think my piece of financial advice, especially to people in college, would be don't use it as the only metric in life. If it's functionally the only measuring stick you have, then your life could be quite empty. Don't evaluate people based on it. Don't run people through that finances only rubric. And gosh, I'm glad my wife didn't, because I'd still be single and very sad. But she bet on me, and I'm so glad. We've been together 27 years. So
That's wonderful.
I'm
I
sure
completely agree with you too.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of us could say that as broke college students going on dates and things
That's
like
right,
that.
man.
So.
Yeah, you're trying to do your best. And
exactly.
I borrowed my parents' car, detailed it, had the Q-tips out. You know, I really wanted to impress her. But
Well, it sounds like it worked.
I think so. We did something right.
So speaking of money, you know, I have one last question for you.
Sure.
If you were to find some extra change in your pocket, what would you spend it on?
Man, what a great question. So I love water. I love large bodies of water. Okay. And I've realized in all my years of vacationing, what I most want to do on a vacation is just contemplative gazing. I just want to sit and look at like a beautiful body of water and eat great food. So I need the great food, the contemplative gazing. Chicago is one of my favorite American cities. It's probably my favorite American city. And Chicago real estate is actually quite cheap right now. And so I've been kind of taking the Chicago lakefront condo journey. Like the tabs are open on my computer and we're kicking the tires on it. And, you know, if I book one more like ghostwriting project or one more, you know, kind of big off the field at Union project, we could maybe pull the trigger on that. So,
so a little more than some pocket.
A little more than pocket change.
Add your pocket change to that.
Exactly.
Right.
We can add the pocket change up and then hopefully
Save
hopefully
the
do
pocket
it.
change till you have.
I'm betting on Chicago right now. Chicago's at a low ebb, but I think it's going to
That's
come
great.
roaring back. I think people are always going to want lakefront, so you know it could be a good investment. We'll see.
Sounds like
Time
a great
will
plan
tell.
to me.
Yeah,
Well, thanks so much for being on the podcast today. We appreciate you being here.
man. Thanks for having me, you guys. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks for tuning in to the Pocket Change Podcast.
Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe, and check out our full episodes on YouTube,
The Pocket Change Podcast is brought to you by Leaders Credit Union.
where we power your passion and make lives better.
Cha-ching.
Cha-ching! Leaders is federally insured by the NCUA Equal Housing Lender.
Learn more at leaderscu.com.